The first great passenger liner of the air. Popular Mechanics, December 1928. Members of the crew of the Graf Zeppelin before the dirigible took to the skies for its voyage to Lakehurst from Friedrichshafen, Germany. The photograph gives a clear view of the forward control room and its comparative size. One of the big 520 horsepower Rohrbach engines being hoisted into its gondola. There were 5 of these motors, each carefully set so that the propellers would not interfere with each other when all were working. The Graf Zeppelin was designed essentially the same as its predecessor, the Los Angeles of the US Navy, but it is 1.5 times as large and differs especially in the matter of the fuel it used. Instead of all gasoline, it burned a special gas which has approximately the same specific gravity as air, putting finishing touch on the fabric close to the Zeppelin's nose. Mechanic inspecting one of the motors before it was installed. These engines burn either the new blue gas or gasoline. A rim of one of the big wheels of the R-101 to be one of the world's largest airships, now near completion at Cardington, England. It is for service on the England-Egypt-India route. View of a gas valve of the R-101. This ship is 750 feet long, and the gas bag has a capacity of almost 5 million cubic feet. Close view of the control room of the Graf Zeppelin, with the passenger compartments toward the rear. Note the spaces for the gas bags, the fuel, freight and baggage storage, the crew's sleeping quarters, kitchen, dining room, and lounge. The dining room is large enough for 40 persons at one time, and is handsomely furnished and ventilated through large windows, a special convenience when the ship sails over the tropics. The airliner in its hangar at Friedrichshafen, with the gas inlet attached. Use of gas fuel of about the same weight as air made it unnecessary to have water recovery apparatus such as was devised by American government engineers to maintain weight on the Los Angeles, as its engines burn gasoline. The recovery units condense the exhaust. Dr. Hugo Eckner, center, with members of his staff in the pilot's cabin of the Graf Zeppelin during the last test flight of the big dirigible before it started for America. It left at 12:52 a.m. October 11th and arrived at Lakehurst October 15th at 4:38 p.m., having traveled through the air nearly 6,000 miles and being aloft about 112 hours. It beat the best steamer time despite several mishaps. From left to right. Anton Whitman, navigator, Captain E.A. Lehman, first officer, and H. von Schiller, navigator, 3 members of the Graf Zeppelin's crew who made their second dirigible voyage to the United States with the giant liner of the skies. Their first trip was when the Los Angeles, now part of the US Navy, was safely sailed to this country. The Graf under construction for the Great Journey, showing some of the special ladders needed. One of the ship's officers peering from the pilot's cabin as it passed over Berlin on its last long test flight before the actual takeoff to America. Although the huge craft encountered unfavorable weather over a large part of the ocean trip, it showed that dirigibles can successfully dodge storms as well as journey through them. The transatlantic flight took longer than had been anticipated, but the Graf Zeppelin had fuel for over 40 hours when it landed at Lakehurst. How the Graf Zeppelin compares in size with the Los Angeles and the Woolworth Tower. It is nearly 100 feet in diameter and has a gas capacity of 3,750,000 cubic feet. Leaving the hangar. Rear view of the big dirigible, showing the huge fins and the rudder with 4 of the motor gondolas in sight far down the ship's cigar-shaped body. up-close view showing Robert Hartman, a cameraman, at the window of one of the gondolas of the giant ship just before the second test flight, which proved it worthy for the trip across the ocean. Note how the gondola is streamlined to decrease resistance. The motors are 520 horsepower Rohrbox and functioned splendidly throughout the journey. A minor mishap to one of the big fins was the only damage suffered in the 112-hour flight against unfavorable winds and through fogs. All the motors and other parts of the ship are controlled from the forward cabin, the brains of the dirigible. One of the most difficult phases of travel by dirigibles involves handling the big bags when they land. Here is part of the expert landing crew of the Graf Zeppelin at the ropes just before the ship took to the air for its first flight. A view of the wind-driven generator that supplies current for the ship's wireless system. When the dirigible slows down, the generator slackens speed too, hampering the performance of the radio apparatus. Radio set in a German commercial airplane. The Graf Zeppelin was equipped with a special radio cabin fitted with the latest types of receivers and transmitters, as well as radio direction-finding apparatus. Batteries were provided for operating the ship's wireless in case the wind generator was not running. But they were out of commission at first, and the ship was cut off from communication until the battery system was repaired.